Losing Jim Knowles to Penn State is a big shakeup, but it doesn't mean Ohio State's defense can't remain dominant.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. During today's show, we'll discuss if Ryan Day should utilize an in-house promotion to replace Jim Knowles. But before we get to any of that, losing Jim Knowles is a big shakeup, but it doesn't mean Ohio State's defense can't remain dominant. And I know that news came out on a day where Ohio State celebrated the national championship. And when you don't see the defensive coordinator and you know there are rumors out there about Jim Knowles potentially leaving, that's going to put maybe a negative light on the Buckeyes defense. Don't let that happen. Celebrate the natty and also realize in 2025, Ohio State's defense can remain dominant. Ryan Day has showed us that he can get hires right. He got the Chip Kelly hire right. He got the Jim Knowles hire right. And nobody right now, no Buckeye fan out there should not believe that Ryan Day can't get the next defensive coordinator hire correct as well, because he can. In Ryan Day's 6 years as being Ohio State's head coach, he's learned a lot on the job. He's had the on-the-job training where most of the time in this position at Ohio State, in this job, you don't get on-the-job training. If you need on-the-job training, you're not here very long. But for Ryan Day, he's had the ability to have back-to-back 10-win seasons and still got on-the-job training. Think about how weird that is. You think about Alabama. Think about Texas. Think about Oklahoma. Think about all these places around college football that if you need on-the-job training, you're probably not winning 10 games in a season. And if you do need on-the-job training, you're not getting it in back-to-back seasons. But Ryan Day's done that. He's had the opportunity to take in a lot from other coaches, from seasoned coaches, Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel being a couple of them, but also had the ability to learn from the mistakes that he's made or learn from some of the successes that he's had while at Ohio State. And I believe Ryan Day moving forward is going to tap into the resources that he has at Ohio State, tap into the right channels, make sure that he is going through and checking every single box before saying, hey, this is the contract. We believe you are the next person to lead Ohio State's defense. And I think Ryan Day's track record is great. Also coming off of a national championship win, that's another reason why any elite defensive coordinator out there or a guy who is an up-and-comer in the sport should be chomping at the bit to come to Ohio State. Now, if you're looking at Ohio State's defense right now and you're thinking, Jay, how can the defense be elite while also losing a lot of people? Think about the talent that's on the team right now. I want to touch more about this later on in some specific players. But yes, you're losing your entire starting defensive line. You're losing your block O and Cody Simon. You're losing one safety and one safety, two corners. Hancock's gone, Burke's gone, Ransom's gone. You're losing a lot. You're also bringing back some talented players. And in a season where Ohio State had a lot of guys that are going to be day one and day two picks on the defense, they also are able to have depth pieces as well. I mean, Cade McDonald's going to be a guy. Edgecution's going to be a guy. Kenyatta Jackson Jr., Caden Curry, they have guys there. And so, yes, if you are someone on the outside looking at Ohio State and looking at the talent they're losing, you may say, no, that might not be a dominant defense next year. They may lose the games because the defense can't stop players or they can't stop the run or stop the pass or can't do either one. You might say, yeah, because of the guys who are losing. I watched the Big Ten the celebration of the national championship just a day ago. And the young lady that was hosting, I forget her name, actually first time I've seen her on TV, she made a comment to Tyvis Powell who said, Ohio State is not a place where they rebuild, they reload. And that's exactly what Ohio State's going to do. They're going to reload with talent. They're going to have guys out there on the D-line, at linebacker, in the secondary. They're going to be future NFL players. Jermaine Matthews Jr., Dave Stigman-Olsen. I believe those two guys have the opportunity to play in the NFL. Caleb Downs, enough said. He's a guy we're going to touch on in the very next segment because I think Caleb Downs is a guy that's going to be great to lure another guy in to lead this defense. But this defense is going to be just fine. The players are going to be fine leading this thing. They're a big reason why any defensive coordinator out there, any coach out there that's going to try to has a desire to coach at the highest level and lead an elite defense, they're going to look at this opportunity and say, Jim Knowles has the infrastructure. Jim Knowles did a lot in 3 years. Why wouldn't I want that job? I know Jim Knowles is leaving. There may be things behind the scenes that led to him leaving. Cool. What are those? And if you don't get to know him, cool. Look at what's out there. Look at Ryan Day. Look at what he's built over the past 6 years, and also have a mission in mind. Beat Michigan. Do what is needed to lead that side of the ball to beat the Wolverines on Thanksgiving weekend. Make that your mission as well. As Ohio State's defensive mission will not change as far as being one of the units that is one of the best in the country. Also have this goal in mind. Beat the Wolverines. It's in Ann Arbor. Wouldn't it be great if you go to Ann Arbor, I don't have the date right in front of me, and you go there with a new D coordinator and you do something Jim Knowles never did. I love Jim Knowles as a D coordinator, man. One of the best in the country. I'm not here to knock him, but while he was here, Ohio State never beat that team up north. Never, not once. So what do? If you come in here and you use that as your motivation and you say we're building up towards game number 12, knowing and believing the game that's going to propel us to have a game 13 and make game number 13 be the Big Ten championship, you go there to Ann Arbor and you lead that defense to do something that Jim Knowles never did, trust me, Buckeye fans will love you. They'll love you even more than you think they're going to because you did something huge. You helped snap that losing streak. Yes, I know it's January 27th. That game is not until November. I don't care. We're talking about that rivalry all season because you need to snap that losing streak. And if I'm a new defensive coordinator coming in and I have a mission of keeping Ohio State's defense to be one of the best in the country, what else is one of my goals? To help Ryan Day snap that losing streak. And think about how nice that's going to be, amazing that's going to be, that you're going to have not only stop that losing streak, but as we saw that sigh of relief and some weight off Ryan Day's shoulders when he was on that podium at the national championship celebration, think about the celebration that day in Ann Arbor, where Ohio State, not saying they're going to, I'm not there yet, but where Ohio State at some point snaps that losing streak, man, going to have so much fun celebrating. Trust me, it's going to be so much fun. But a new D coordinator is going to come in and say, what's the mission? I got all this talent. What's the mission of the defense? It's the same thing it's always been. If that's the same thing it's always been, the new D coordinator is going to come in and say, okay, I can get this done. With your leadership, with your guidance, we can get this done. And if we have to re-engineer things in the middle of the season, we can get that done too. We've done it once under Ryan Day, and I think Ryan Day can lead another re-engineering of the defense if it's needed with a new defensive coordinator, whoever it's going to be in 2025. One thing I think about when it comes to a new defensive coordinator and why this job is so enticing about whoever leads the defense at Ohio State in 2025 is because of a guy who wears number 2 on the Buckeyes defense. That guy is a dude, and any defensive coordinator out there in the country should want to coach him in 2025. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. And then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and do everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back, guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Thank y'all for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes here on this Monday. If you are someone looking for an instant reaction and my thoughts about Jim Knowles leaving Ohio State for the same role at Penn State, Tap into Locked on Buckeyes. Subscribe to the show on YouTube or anywhere you get your fine podcasts. We had an instant reaction pod on Sunday reacting to that news. While we were instantly reacting to that news, we discussed Jim Knowles and some possibilities of some guys that might fill his role. One thing we didn't really talk about is guys on the defense that will be great guys to coach. We didn't do that at all. It was more about Jim Knowles leaving and whoever might replace him. But I've learned something about coaching, and I've learned something about guys when they get hired to a new job. I recently interviewed a coach locally that took a new job at the high school level. He immediately talked about one of the guys on the team that he recently talked to. And he did it at his previous stop too. And I had an interview with him when he took a previous job. Coaches, when they come in to take a new role, they're going to look at the guys on the team and say, "Oh man, I can't wait to coach him." And Caleb Downs is one of those guys that if I'm a defensive coordinator or someone that's trying to see if this is the right spot for me, number two is one of those guys where I'm sitting here thinking, I want to coach him. I want to coach him now. What I got to do to get this job? Beat all the other candidates? How many are there? 30? Cool. I'm going to come in there and lay out the best interview, have the best presentation to let you know the type of defense that we're going to run here at Ohio State. If it's going to align with everything Ryan Day wants in a defense, cool. Do it. Do what you got to do to get this job. Because I would love to coach not Jim Knowles. I would love to coach. He's not playing football anymore. I would love to coach Caleb Downs. And trust me, he's so much fun to watch. He is literally an extension of the coach out there when he's on the field. And that's one of the best things about Caleb Downs, the football player. He's not only a football player out there on the field, but he's also a coach. You see him out there when he's playing. How many times is he going to his left, to his right, and immediately keeping all the communication out there the way that it needs to go, making all the checks, seeing things and saying, "Oh, no, what we're currently doing is not going to work. But we got to make this change very quickly." And Caleb Downs makes the changes. He makes touchdown saving tackle after touchdown saving tackle. He is a guy that anybody out there should want to coach. And I wouldn't say he's the bait, but he's definitely one of the biggest fish in the pond on defense, if not the biggest fish in the pond for Ohio State's defense to say, there's one guy out there I want to coach that can make my entire unit better. It's Caleb Downs, and I want to coach him. And I don't blame him. I want to coach Caleb Downs. I ain't a coach. I've had a little bit of assistant coach at a Christian school about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. It was assistant coach. I didn't really do much. I was just there to try to fill a spot, to be honest with you. Flag football coach at summer camp. Didn't really do much. You go in there. You come out. Didn't really do much. I let them go out there and play. I am not a coach. But I can tell when there's a dude out there on the football field that I would love to coach if I was one. That's Caleb Downs. Also, this defense has a lot of guys that already have done a lot of great things in a Scalding Gray and that are chomping at the bit to start. Two guys come to mind on the defensive line. Kenyatta Jackson Jr. and Cade and Guerreri, they have been working and they have been grinding to get on the field, literally waiting their turn. When you come in and you're behind Tui Maloau and Jack Sawyer, you're literally at their mercy. If they decide to stay out of Ohio State, you're not going to jump them on the depth chart. They have a track record of success. They're future pros. You're not going to jump them. So you wait your turn. Edric Houston, Cade McDonald, two guys that have done a lot of great things at Ohio State. In a backup role, Edric Houston in his first year in Columbus wowed a lot of people. Wowed me when I saw him jump up the depth chart in the latter part of the season. You're not jumping over Tyleik Williams or Ty Hamilton. However, you now have the ability to get on the field consistently. And I can't wait to see that unit of four out on the field all the time with whoever is leading that unit, because there's an elite traits and elite attributes in a lot of these guys out there. And the fact that Ohio State's losing all these guys and the defense might not take a massive drop off. I don't believe it's going to take a massive drop downward when you lose all these players. That's a huge asset and a huge recruiting tool piece for Ohio State to bring in a new defensive coordinator. But another reason why I think that there's so many reasons why a new D coordinator should want to keep this, to come to get this job, why Ohio State's defense will be elite, remain elite without Jim Knowles. Ohio State's recruiting has been strong. And you have seen things trend upward in numerous areas in the past few years. Yes, There have been misses. We're not going to dodge the misses, but there's been a lot of wins on the recruiting trail. Carlos Lachlan was recently on a podcast. I don't know which one it was, but he talked about how Ohio State in the Block O, it kind of helps you recruit, but you still got to build that relationship. And so whoever is coming in and taking on that role of new defensive coordinator, it's going to help you keep this thing at the same level that it's currently at, because the Block O can help you, but you have to be able to build relationships. And I have no problem believing Ryan Day is going to get this hire correct, because he figures out guys that are going to come in to build relationships. Think about just simply that side of the ball. The position groups that are still, the assistant coaches that are still there. You have the fact that Larry Johnson, one of the best D-line coaches in the country, is great at building relationships. James Laurinaitis quickly made a name for himself as an Ohio State linebacker coach, but is also a good recruiter, and he's great at building relationships. Matt Guerreri, Tim Walton, knocking it out of the park when it comes to relationships, and they're also great recruiters. All of those guys are great at leading their rooms, and they have developed players this year. Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom play phenomenal, great ball. Jordan Hancock playing safety and playing corner, phenomenal, played great. One of the unsung heroes of this team, a guy that doesn't get enough praise, is Jordan Hancock. Denzel Burke, Davidson Igmanosin, both of those guys had slumps this year, but both of those guys also played great ball. Think about who they're being developed by and being coached by. That's huge. The fact that you can move Sonny Styles from safety to linebacker and have him practice multiple spots throughout the season, all of a sudden, when you only have him practice one, you see his growth. Think about that right there. The Buckeyes on the recruiting trail are going to continue to get guys. I can't wait to see Peyton Pierce get on the field consistently. I don't think it's going to be next year. Sonny Styles and Alvaro Reese are going to be the starters. But it wouldn't shock me if Peyton Pierce gets out there consistently and does an amazing thing. Jason Moore. Now, he's not an incoming kid, but I can't wait to see him get out there in rotation consistently. Joshua Mickens, a kid from my own high school, went to school with his brothers. One thing that I can't wait for him is to see him get developed a whole lot more. You recruit guys, maybe they're projects, maybe they're 5 stars, but no matter where they are in the star rating system, they're getting developed. And the fact that Ohio State is currently still on the mend of retaining all of their assistant coaches, position coaches on defense, that's another tool, man. That's huge. The fact that you could come in and say, who are my assistant coaches? Oh, the same guys that have been here the last year that helped lead one of the best defenses in the country, they're still here? Hey, man, sign me up. The recruiting, is it strong? Yeah, recruiting right now at Ohio State is strong for 2026. Got a good base to it. Can it get better? Absolutely. There are so many reasons why Ohio State's defense is going to remain dominant and will be fine without Jim Knowles. Some people thought the Jeff Hafley thing was going to be one where the defense was never going to get back to that level. And what happened in 2024? Trust me. Those years before that, 21 through 23 were kind of those years where if you're like me, you ain't got much hair in your head. You wanted to pull every hair in your head that you have because, man, it was tough. 2024 was a different story. Can't wait to see who the next D coordinator is. And while thinking about who the next D coordinator is, I have my own thoughts about going outside of the house to get a new D coordinator, but it's a possibility. Ryan Day decides to make an in-house promotion. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, y'all, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official partner of Super Bowl 59. Thank you all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. One thing I know about Ohio State is that there are a lot of great position coaches on both sides of the ball, offense, defense. We can go up and down the line about how great these assistant coaches are. But when a defensive coordinator leaves, especially after a season like this, there's always a thought, and people wonder if there's a guy on staff that could be promoted to being the defensive coordinator. On offense, Chip Kelly is currently being talked to by various NFL coaches. The Houston Texans, and I do believe the Jacksonville Jaguars are a couple teams that are talking to Chip Kelly about being their OC at Ohio and the NFL next year. And no matter if it's offense or defense, I think that there's a good reason to think an in-house promotion might be the thing. And if that's the route that Ryan Day goes, I think there's a couple of guys, well, two guys specifically, that might fit that description. Matt Guerreri and Tim Walton. Of the guys currently on defense that might be at the top of the list to be a defensive coordinator at Ohio State next year, Matt Guerreri is that guy. He was a former co-defensive coordinator at Indiana in 2023, I believe. And he is a guy that led that unit, the IU unit that was one of the better units of a team that doesn't have a whole lot of wins that year. If you look back at the Hoosiers that year, that unit was actually pretty good. And the Hoosiers team is really, really odd because they have talent on offense and on defense. They just can't last 4 quarters with the big boys. Even in a better year this year where the Hoosiers went 11-1, when they played the best teams that are on their schedule, they didn't belong on the field. And it was even worse previously just because the recruiting wasn't the best and the guys they got, they were talented, but physically they couldn't last with the demands of an Ohio State or a Notre Dame or one of those top schools. But Matt Guerreri is one of those guys. He is young. He knows how to relate with the young players right now. He has a track record of being someone that is trending upward to be a star in this sport. Ryan Day already called Matt Guerreri a star. That was one of the things he highlighted about Guerreri when he went over the list of coaches during the national championship celebration. So he already has the respect of Ryan Day. He was someone, or is someone, that was looked at as a Jim Knowles protege and kind of on that tree of someone that knows Jim Knowles' system. So if you want somebody in-house that knows Knowles' system, had to slow down for that one a little bit, and you don't got to go out there and really go across the country to get him to come in. He's already in-house. That will make a whole lot of sense. And when you think about how the safeties played this year, no matter if it was Caleb Downs or Lathan Ransom or Jordan Hancock, who played a lot more safety in the second half of the year, or maybe it's Jalen McClain, who was a backup this year, maybe Lorenzo Styles, who came in more of a nickel, but still did a lot of the safety stuff this year. No matter who it is, that unit was elite all season long. That's another reason why you can look at Matt Guerreri and say, oh, he can possibly fit that description. And then when you think about the recruiting piece we talked about earlier, you want a guy to come in that's an elite recruiter, that wants to recruit, that understands the landscape, understands that you have to do a lot of things well to get the best players. May go without saying, but you want someone that not only understands that, has a track record of doing that. Matt Guerreri can get that thing done. Also, when I say OG Walton, I said it on yesterday's show, didn't say his full name, Tim Walton, the secondary coach. He does a lot of stuff with the corners as well. I think Tim Walton's another guy that could be looked at. Former Buckeye player, and everyone wants a former Buckeye to be there if he can be. If the right guy has Ohio ties, why not bring him in? But I think Tim Walton's another one, just an in-house guy that would make a whole lot of sense if that's the route. I think on the in-house guys on defense, I think Guerreri is 1. I think Tim Walton is 2. Larry Johnson would be my 3rd because of experience. I don't think he wants it at all. I think James Arnaitis would desire it. I just don't think he has enough experience yet for that role. One thing I wouldn't do, and I haven't really talked about this much because I think Ryan Day has gone away from it. The co-defensive coordinator or co-offensive coordinator is not a route that I would prefer Ryan Day to go. Having 2 guys trying to lead one unit could lead to disaster. I get flashbacks to Urban Meyer's time in Columbus and the 2015 season. I'm not trying to say which coach was the issue. There was a co-offensive coordinator situation that year. And, Urban Meyer is an offensive guy. So there's another person that's inside those offensive meeting rooms and having a heavy influence, not only because he's the head coach, but because you're running the things that he wants you to run. And I do believe that was a big reason why the 2015 season ended the way it did. Just the voices, man. Too many voices in one room can lead to disaster. No, that's not the move. And if that's what Ryan Day is leaning towards, I would actually caution him to say no. Don't do that. Because if you have co-D coordinators, that means you're going to have to lose one of your 10 assistant coaches, which could throw off the dynamic. And what dynamic you currently have works very, very well. You have a lot of young guys that can relate. There are former players that they didn't play so long ago that their playing days are kind of in the ancient history of the sport. No. And I say ancient history. Like, Jim Knowles played football in the 80s. Yes, you can go out there and look at Jim Knowles tapes. I'm pretty sure it's on the YouTube. But Justin Fry played the 2000s. Matt Guerreri probably around the same time. Tim Walton played a little bit longer ago, but he finds ways to relate. When you go around on Twitter and you look at some of those videos where Tim Walton is spitting some of his knowledge, you can tell while those athletes are 18 to 22 years old and Tim Walton's, 50 plus years old? I don't know what his exact age. Over 50. They are soaking in every syllable of what he says. And you can see that on their faces. There's a great mix of a lot of the youth, and Keaton Bailey being one of them. That's a youth guy. The coordinators were guys that were seasoned in Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles. It wouldn't shock me if the next OC and DC, let's just say that Ohio State right now is potentially having to replace their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator from a national championship winning season. I wouldn't shock me if the guys that were coming in were significantly younger than Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles. Also, wouldn't shock me if those promotions came from in-house. I haven't really touched much on the OC thing yet. That's going to come a little bit more once, or if, more so an if, not once, but if Chip Kelly goes back to the NFL, which that may be where he wants to go, cool. I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it at all. I'll touch more about the OC thing down the road. Matt Guerreri, if he is a guy, would I be upset about it? No, I wouldn't be. I get it. I think it could be a great move for a long-term success and short-term success. And let's say he turns into Ohio State's Bud Foster, and Bud Foster was the long-time Virginia Tech defensive coordinator, was there for about 20 years, ended up retiring. Let's say Matt Guerreri comes in and he's like, cool, I'm good with this role. The money is great. My family is sustained. We're not hurting financially. We're not hurting for anything. I want to be here. I just want to pitch my tent, and I want to be here with my family for X amount of years. Great. While Ryan Day plans on being at Ohio State, has no plans of leaving, it wouldn't shock me if he finds coordinators that want to stick around here for the long haul with him as well. Thank y'all for tapping into Locked on Buckeyes here on a Monday. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Buckeye fans, we're up out of here on a Monday. We'll see you next time.